Welcome to another edition of Hacking TV. It was a big week for cable television, and some surprising numbers may herald the new king of the mountain. But somewhere Michael Wolff is grinning ear to ear.
Is Shrek grinning ear to ear as he gets taken over by the minions? You know, the most interesting merger of the week is Comcast buying DreamWorks.
And the YouTube Saga continues as it opens its checkbook for creators.
I'm Saul Hansell.
And I'm Steve Rosenbaum. And this is Hacking TV. And we are here.
On May Day, no less.
Indeed. And very busy time. Last week was a surprise, I have to say. I mean, it was the first really solid drumbeat of the big media gobbles all this digital stuff and makes it look more like big media story, which, you know, my friend and curmudgeon Michael Wolff has been arguing for a very long time that TV was going to eat the internet, and it last week it sure appeared that he was right.
I vote for that thesis. I think that we've seen it over and over. Big old companies buy stuff because they can have, the executives have the power to dilute the hell out of their shareholders, print shares, buy stuff. That's just how it goes. But we've got more interesting, the two deals that we're going to talk about, the sale of TiVo and DreamWorks Animation, are essentially two sad puppies. This is not like people buying some hot company, like Hulu or Netflix. These are has-been companies.
No, they're not has-been companies. They're not.
All right. What was the peak year of TiVo's relevance? The peak century? Not this one.
So I bought a
TiVo connected to your antenna. We've heard that, but what do you make? I mean, we're not doing this in order, but we're here. What do you make of Roe v. buying TiVo? Why is this a big deal?
So, I, with great swagger and confidence, wrote a Forbes piece about 3 weeks ago in which I said Roe v. was the shot across the bow, but there would be a bidding war, and that Roe v. might or might not be the winning bidder. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I was just entirely wrong.
And did you? I saw the piece. I don't remember. Did you predict who was going to be the buyer?
I threw all kinds of lovely names into the hopper. Google and Apple and Netflix and basically the thesis that I argued incorrectly was that in this new open set-top box environment, A, TiVo had terrific technology, best in breed, and B, because they own these patents, you didn't want them across the table from you, to be necessarily filing suit. But it turns out that Roe v., they paid up. It was a $1.1 billion deal. Stockholders are happy. Roe v. Here's the thing that makes me happy. Here's the part that makes my soul smile.
Okay.
Roe v. is changing its name to TiVo.
Okay, because people of a certain age, have heard of TiVo. I mean, and nobody's heard of Roe v. But look, I mean, I pulled it up. So
I'm pretty sure you just called me old. And by the way, I just want to remind you that because I edit the show, anything could happen in the edit room, Saul. I could put like a little funny hat on you in graphics.
I can make my own funny hat. Thank you very much. But if you do that, put up the stock graph. So TiVo's peak was January 14th of 2000, where the thing was $57 a share. It crashed like all tech stocks, and basically hasn't hit 20 in the rest of its life, although it was 2 years ago. It was at $14 a share, and it got bought for $10 a share. So the market for its wisdom does not see this company as a shining light.
I just want to point out, in the kicking a guy when he's down category, I've already confessed that I wrote a piece and I was wrong. And, you could be a little bit more gentle about the salt in the wounds part of this game.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. I respect your misguided efforts.
Send me some of your posts where you've made big predictions, and then we can have an fair playing field.
Like the one where the headline on the story from 2003, Google, nice company, but where's the revenue model?
Really?
Yeah,
I'll have to dig that one up.
Yeah, okay.
Is that framed? Do you have that on the wall?
There's even the one about Yahoo that said, that was isn't it getting a little pricey at $500 million of market cap? That was about 1998, 97. So even after all of its travails, the part that isn't Alibaba is going to get sold for pieces for $6 billion or something like that. So,
all right, so let's talk about a more complicated and potentially more interesting deal. Why did Comcast buy DreamWorks?
Because they wanted to have the Minions take over Shrek. The Comcast controlled animation studio is behind the is distant third or fourth, right, with the Incredible Me franchise, and DreamWorks has had some hits, although not very many lately. What the analysts, that's not why. What the analyst said is it's all about theme parks, right? That the entire TV movie business is in flux. Who knows what to do about that? But Universal Studios makes gobs of money and is one of the few, the bright spots in their earnings right now. So, a little Kung Fu Panda before they open Universal Studios China might be handy.
I got to say, when I saw Steve Burke speak at CES, he honestly said that when they bought, NBC, they did not think that Universal was going to be the win of that portfolio, but he said exactly that. He said that the parks business has been remarkably robust and solid and growing. So,
because it costs $100 to go to one of those theme parks, more if you actually don't want to wait in line,
or if you want to have a hot dog or a Coke, add an extra $100.
But who knows? I mean, the story here, right, is this is sort of I don't know. Would you call this a sad ending, a good ending for, what was, meant to be one of the great creative partnerships of, the last generation in Hollywood, right? You had David Geffen and Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg creating the Dream Studio, the United Artists of the 21st century, but it didn't work out that way.
No, the SKG, I don't remember whether the S left before the G left, but they've all moved on.
Well, yeah. So it was a combined live action animation studio. The animation studio did okay with Shrek and Madagascar and so on, and they took it public 10 years ago, and so that was independent. They sold the movie studio to Paramount, then sort of got it back. And most recently, last year, they just sort of folded it into Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, but it hasn't done much in the last couple of years. Geffen is giving his money to museums, and so on. And Spielberg just makes movies for people who pay him a lot of money.
So why, when you say sad, though, I mean that is kind of the media take on the story.
Katzenberg wanted to be, a mover and a shaker, right? He wanted, he was a studio guy. He was at Disney Animation for a long time. He was, had all the moves of a number one Hollywood player. And he then has been forced to spend the last several years,
looking for money,
trying and failing to sell his company. The deal that, the way they spun this for the media, Katzenberg was about to sell the thing to a Chinese buyout fund or something. And somehow Comcast got wind of it and discovered that this thing was for sale somehow, and went and bid a lot of money and bought it.
So the Times piece, which is maybe where I got sad from, the headline was "DreamWorks Animation Sale leaves Jeffrey Katzenberg at a crossroads," and essentially said he wouldn't be. Now, by the way, we should be so lucky as to have a sad outcome with a $400 million payday. I mean, big crocodile tears over here. But
yes,
but he's not going to get to stay, right? There was some issue of, there wasn't room for two leaders, and the Comcast guys had their own guy that was going to run the movie business.
Yeah, Mr. Minions.
You love saying that, don't you?
I do. It's even true. But I don't know. I met Katzenberg once at an HP event where they were trying to look hip because they were somehow involved in producing Shrek. But otherwise, I don't know any of the rest of these guys. I mean, Comcast guys are bright as hell, but pretty damn big. I don't know. And Comcast, in the midst of all this, had a remarkably strong financial quarter. Indeed, and in the pay TV business, as is one of the main themes of this podcast, is at this crossroads where we know that we're going to move from linear streams to IP on demand. Comcast has known this for years, but they're playing their hand. But they have reversed the decline in video subs that they've had as the biggest cable subscriber. The basically Verizon and to some degree less AT&T, as they grew up over the last 10 years, took more subs out of the hide of Comcast than out of anybody else, and they finally turned that around. So they've the first year-on-year increase in a decade. And they're saying they're optimistic about their video business.
But what's interesting is, and you've fallen into the trap, everybody reported the Comcast numbers on video customers, not cable customers. And I spent a long time reading the numbers trying to understand the distinction, and they blurred that line on purpose, right?
Well, no. I mean, video is actually, because cable in this context is broadband plus telephone plus your TV subscription. And so you break it out because broadband has been growing like gangbusters for everybody. So I think they added 500,000 or 50,000 video subs, but a couple 100,000 broadband subs. And the broadband business doesn't have this OTT problem, right? I mean, and the bundle pricing and everything. So the broadband business, it's a telecom sort of commodity-like business, but it's a real business in a way that the cable TV bundle business may not be. And
but it's not a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Because AT&T, their numbers were not strong.
And it's more. I mean, I think when you go through the numbers, everybody in the cable business is adding a few subscribers. Verizon, the other telco, is up. Time Warner Cable, may it rest in peace, the number 2 cable company, is up a little bit, except for AT&T, which, when you add DirecTV and their Uverse, cable substitute together, lost 50,000 subscribers, and that all that losses were out of Uverse, which is I think really interesting. Right? Uverse it was always a tricky technology. It's TV over DSL. It's TV over a copper pair wire, and it has some technological challenges. But
so can I just use the freedom of our little bully pulpit here to tell you just a 30-second story about AT&T that has nothing to do with video?
I think our audience, both of them, are just sitting on the edge of their seats wanting to hear any good AT&T story that someone has.
So I'm an AT&T wireless customer.
Yes.
And about once a month I have some billing issue, and I call the 611 number, and I end up getting a recording that says, the small business office you've called is closed for the weekend. And every time this happens, I call the 800 number, figuring it's a mistake, And the 800 number says, the small business office you have called is closed for the weekend. Usually if I hit 0 enough times or say operator enough times, I get to a person, I solve the problem. Today, they've now so buttoned it down that I could not speak to a human. So I ended up instead on chat and having this incredibly combative, wildly unsuccessful hour-long chat with a retention specialist who essentially all they would do was send me links of how bad Sprint and T-Mobile were.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let me accept that you're right about those two competitors. Why wouldn't I go to Verizon, pay the same money I'm paying you, and have someone answer the phone?
Oh, wait a second. I am in the process of moving, and I am trying to move my damn cable service, my FiOS service, from here to a block from here. And now Verizon is on strike, but
oh well, yeah.
This is not the easiest thing in the world to manage.
So when AT&T comes out with bad numbers, my only point is they may have some deeply like I am not a business customer. It's a cell phone. It's a personal number. There's no reason. And when I tell the chat woman that their offices are open, she says, "Oh, we're totally open." Well, can I speak to someone? She's like, "Well, call 611." Well, it doesn't work. Nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. I say, "Can they call me?" She said, "They're not allowed."
One day, if I get really annoyed, I will publish the chat transcript of one of my conversations with Verizon because they had declared I had signed up for a contract that I hadn't, and basically I have this, transcript showing them calling me a liar and ignoring all the emails and evidence I kept sending them, and they literally just called me a liar for an hour and chat.
Well, offline we'll swap chat.
All right. So anyway, but the punchline of this is: if you get to be a big enough company, you are truly obnoxious and bureaucratic, and particularly when you want to sort of loop people into contracts when the world is changing and you'd like them to sign up. Although if Verizon ever switches me because I'm moving, they're reducing my, net monthly price by about a third and quadrupling my internet speed. So
let's just recap and then we'll move forward. So we think the Comcast DreamWorks deal is good. It's a good ending. Means that China's not buying, the characters that will be in the amusement parks. That's great. What do we think about the Charter Time Warner Cable deal?
Okay, right. So background on that is Time Warner Cable decides it has no will to live. CEO had run his course, put stuff up for sale. Comcast wants to buy it. Number two, one cable company buying number two. The government growls enough to make them go away. So Charter, which was number 5, but has been growing under John Malone's control, agrees to buy them and Bright House to create a big number 2. The government growls a little bit, then says yes with a bunch of conditions. So suddenly we're going to have a company with 20 million broadband subscribers and 18 million TV subscribers, or vice versa. So.
And I'm sorry, this just makes me a little bit dumb, but do we know anybody that has Bright House as a cable? I know the name and I've seen it kick around, but I've never met a human being that says, "Oh yeah, I get my cable from Bright House."
It hasn't come up. I don't actually know where they do business. I mean, where is Charter? I mean, these are like flyover companies, right? But lots of people pay their cable bills in the middle. So right? Time Warner is New York and LA, right? So those are, places that people go. But
by the way, they sold me. Time Warner Cable is my broadband provider. So I'm the product of that sale or the.
So here's a couple ways to think about this, right? So what they are doing is combining companies that don't compete against each other in the old business model, right? So there is essentially no place where you could compete. You could pick between Charter and Time Warner. So at one level, at the consumer level, it's not decreasing choice or increasing prices in that supply-demand sort of way. On the Hollywood level, it creates, concentrated buyers, so it's bad for studios and good for cable systems because the Time Warner Charter can drive a tougher bargain with the studios. And maybe most interestingly, the government got a couple of interesting restrictions out of them that could put a little spin on the market for a bit, right? So 3 promises. Promise number 1, Charter, Time Warner can't buy any programming exclusively in a way and a deal that would keep that programming off of internet providers like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon.
So that's good.
Yeah, right. Competition is good. I mean, you could argue that every now and then exclusive makes for cool stuff. I mean, Netflix, House of Cards and all those shows wouldn't have been made if somebody couldn't pay to make them and have them be exclusive to give you a reason to go subscribe to Netflix or HBO. But net, since that's not what these cable systems do anyway, that's good. Also good is for 7 years they're not going to impose any usage caps that would restrict the amount of online video you can watch. And Time Warner had been a leader in saying, if you use more than X number of gigabytes, you have to start paying overage fees like your cell phone. And Comcast has been rolling that out. It's a way of charging people more money, which they tend to like to do. So
7 years is a long time.
7 years is enough, and that's a big enough piece of the business that's going to have an effect. It will define a little bit of what the competitive landscape is going to look like, because potentially you can't go put a cap like that in if your competitor's not. Now, in the Northeast, right, Fios has not had caps, but Comcast has been rolling them out. We'll see how that plays out.
Win for the government, win for consumers.
Yeah, and the third thing they're doing is that they've got to, expand their broadband footprint by 2 million people and subsidize some more low-income broadband. Typical government Robin Hood redistribution, good for the world, right? It's the price they have to pay to, fire all those people and make all the money they're going to make. So net, big week for cable overall. Lots of restructuring. It doesn't address any of the real issues, but it's everybody, things are restructuring. We'll see.
So let's go to chapter 3, which is YouTube. YouTube had an interesting week. I mean, the content ID dispute issue was tentatively settled on behalf of content creators. As it was for YouTube, which is used to being kind of the 800-pound gorilla. It was a surprising decision, I thought.
And so let's just go back here. Steve, who is, a masterful content creator who has run into various problems with
as we all do. Yep.
Automated system doing weird shit to stuff he owns. So how would your life be better under the new, and explain what is it that they're going to do now as opposed to what they did before?
So in the past, if either a human or a robot filed a dispute, your revenue share got shut off and stayed off until you settled it. Either won it or somebody agreed to stop making a claim that you were using some piece of music or some element, and there was always a debate about whether or not they were keeping the meter running and then they would pay you when they turned it back on, or whether or not they simply said, during the period of time when there's a dispute over your content, we're going to we're going to run ads, but we're just not going to do a rev share with you, which was always the presumption. So YouTube is now under real pressure from Facebook and other places, Full Screen and Vessel and a bunch of people starting to attract creators off of the YouTube network. And as a result, YouTube just said, we're going to continue to share money with you during the point at which during a content ID dispute until it's settled.
Well, I think it was a little bit more artful, right? So you and I both are saying that the money from, the vast audience on Hacking TV should go to us, one or the other of us, and we're fighting over it. So if we're having a fight over the rights to the very lucrative Hacking TV ad business, they put the money into a separate piggy bank. And once they decide that, of course, I get all the money, they give me the money from the piggy bank. And if they mistakenly decide you should get all the money, you would get the piggy bank.
And one of us is able to go buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
You are very optimistic about
But I'm less interested in the details of this settlement than I am in YouTube, which has been kind of a little bit like the 800-pound gorilla, starting to need to be a little bit more flexible. And I think that's because of the pressure they're feeling from the market.
And meanwhile, they're starting to respond. The music industry is now complaining that YouTube isn't paying them as much money as Spotify is. Not that they like Spotify much, but it's better than YouTube, they say. So, what do you make of YouTube's response to the labels and artists?
I think that there is competition, and I think they need to become, I was going to say more generous, but that's probably further than they're going to go. I think they need to respond to the pressures of the market, and I think they are.
It's interesting. They posted a response, I think, on The Guardian of all places, wherein they're trying to make the case that they're paying lots of money to labels and artists. Certainly, we pay more than radio does, is one of their claims. But they had a statistic that I thought was really interesting, which is 50% of the money they give to labels is from fan-uploaded video where people are syncing some track that they have, and the basic deal is I can go put Coldplay on my cat video, and Coldplay gets a cut of the ad revenue, and this all happens automatically. And so that
it's part of their whole digital fingerprinting system, which is actually what creators are pushing Facebook to get rolled out, essentially to catch up to YouTube.
Right. And so lots of competition, as we see every week. No clear winners, but Google, which has been dominant in a lot of ways, is now facing more competition than they have in a while. So
let's talk a little bit about this week ahead, because two interesting things. So this is the week of the upfronts. The new fronts. So the upfronts are the broadcast television pre-sale of advertising, and the new fronts have been for the last, I'm going to get the 5 or 6 years, something like that, the digital equivalent where the new shows of the next season are premiered in front of media buyers. Last year was incredibly glamorous. The new fronts were big events with big celebrities and lots of, I went to 4 or 5 of them, and they were pretty swanky. I had assumed that this year would be down a notch, because most of the shows that got announced last year failed. Pretty much everything. All the big AOL shows failed. All the Yahoo shows failed. YouTube essentially didn't announce new shows as much as they did just promote their well-known creators, and so they kind of came out a little unscathed. But the idea of the web being a place where people are going to watch shows seems to have, that whole thing has kind of come down a little bit. Interestingly enough, this is going to be the most number of new fronts ever this year. So even I'm sorry?
So but it's probably these new guys like Full Screen, right?
It is, in fact, new guys like Full Screen.
Right. So they want to, this is just like .com money, right? They just want to show off that they have something going on. But
maybe I didn't go to MTV's New Front, which was last night, but this week there are a couple I'm going to. There's a big AOL one. There's a YouTube one coming up. I mean, Go 90 has a big event. I mean, there's, it'll be interesting to see what the net result is, but it doesn't seem like the video space is slowing down.
Well, look, it's one of these things that people have failed to figure out how to build a professional clip video business, but there's so much activity that people are going to keep trying until they figure out if there's a way to make money, if there's a way to produce stuff that people actually want.
And that would be a perfect stopping point for this week's show.
So next week, Steve will tell us which shows he actually wants to watch from what he saw at the New Fronts.
I will indeed, and I'll be back with some. I mean, may even bring some video back.
Would be great. All right.
Have an excellent week.
Until next week, keep on hacking.
Hack on.